Hello, welcome to Candid Career Conversations, a monthly webinar series hosted by the Point Park University Professional Career Readiness Center. My name is Mike, and I will serve as your moderator for today's discussion, which we have titled Mental Health Awareness and Career Success, Managing Stress and Work-Life Balance in a Remote Environment. Today's webinar is brought to you by the Professional Career Readiness Center, which offers programs and services to enhance student success by providing opportunities to achieve career readiness, increase knowledge of career pathways, and connect to experiential learning opportunities such as internships and co-ops. The center also helps students in developing professional skills as well as connecting to meaningful employment through strategic partnerships and targeted events. For today's discussion, we will learn about the importance of mental health and how it contributes to career success. We will also explore how to manage stress with coping mechanisms and tips for self-care. Finally, we will talk about strategies to maintain a healthy work-life balance in a remote environment. Today, I'm happy to welcome Bethany Taylor, Career Counselor at Jewish Family and Community Services of Pittsburgh. Before we get started with her presentation, I'd like to bring her on board for a quick introduction. Hi, Bethany. It's great to see you. We're glad you could join us today. If you can, please tell us about your professional background and current position at JFCS Pittsburgh.
Hi, thank you so much, Mike. It's great to be here with you all. I'm really looking forward to speaking today about mental health and how it can impact our job searching and just success within our careers. So I'm Bethany Taylor. I work at Jewish Family and Community Services located in Squirrel Hill. As you can see right now, currently located in my home. But it's great to be here. I'm a career counselor and I specialize in working with clients who either fall onto the autism spectrum or who have any type of mental health diagnosis. So what I do really is just a lot of individual counseling with clients and students. I do partner with Point Park University's Career Counseling Center, working with some students there as well. Really enjoy leading workshops with JFCS and Point Park. I also have a partnership with Literacy Pittsburgh supporting GED students and their goals. Just really excited to be here today, so thank you for having me.
Well, we're glad you could be with us. Yeah, thanks for the introduction. And we understand you have a presentation that you would like to share with us today. So without further ado, the stage is now yours.
All right, so just to go ahead and kick things off here, I just want to preface the space by saying it's okay to not be okay. This past year has been anything but normal for all of us. We're seeing anxiety and depression on the rise. Many people are having health-related concerns, stress, feeling unmotivated, being lonely or feeling isolated. And these are all things that you might be experiencing, or you might have a loved one who's experiencing this. Also just wanted to touch upon the fact that you might be feeling grief and loss during this time. And when we think about grief and loss, that can be in typical ways, like the loss of a loved one. But I really want to touch on grief and loss in relation to normalcy in life as we knew it. You all being college students, this identity loss is even more specific just because of what you thought you were going to be getting out of your college experience. The campus life, the social interactions, attending classes in person and getting to know professors and students within your major, being on a sports team, being active in the arts, different clubs and organizations. Unfortunately, because of this past year, none of that is looking like what you would have expected. And it's perfectly valid to feel frustrated, sad, angry over your college experience not being what you envisioned it to be. Those feelings are valid. And if you're feeling this way, I want you to know that it's okay to talk about these types of things. Today's conversation is really going to be a space in which we want to recognize that many people are struggling in regard to their mental health right now. So today's conversation, our goal is to discuss some ideas and resources to support students in their mental health and wellness. And one of the biggest ways that we can go ahead and do that is first by talking about the importance of boundaries and daily structure within our work, school, and personal life balance. When you're going to school or work in person, you have that physical boundary. It's much more defined. But right now, you're attending classes remotely. You might be doing a remote internship. You might be working remotely. And because of that, we all are constantly on our phones and our computers. So instead of having a designated classroom or an office to go to, you have your living space, your kitchen table, your couch, your bedroom, now becoming that workspace. And it becomes so much harder to keep that daily structure and boundaries defined. So our mentality might become, well, I'm already here at home. I might as well send a few more emails or work on a few more things. And what was supposed to become a short task for work or school, all of a sudden has become working 3 hours past your usual end time. That off switch between school and work might become non-existent or hard to transition from. And if we're having this overworking and not having a clear work-life balance, this can lead to exhaustion over time, emotional and physical symptoms of becoming overworked or burnt out. So this is something that's really important to think about within your own balance of work and school and your personal life. So if you're starting to feel a little burned out or maybe overworked or not really sure how to set those defined boundaries, there are some things that we can do. First and foremost, think about setting up a designated workspace where you can focus, if you're able to. If you live with other people, try to have that open communication about your schedule. If you have a class presentation coming up or a work meeting where you need to be actively involved and you can't have a lot of background noise, try to have that conversation of ensuring a quiet environment if at all possible. It's also really important just to think about creating a schedule. It can be really helpful in whatever ways you can to mimic the structure of your typical work or school day pre-COVID-19 pandemic. So maybe you used to get your work or school day started by making some coffee or listening to some music during your morning commute, walking to class, going to internship, whatever that may be. So you can go ahead and build those things in, still making your coffee in the morning, listening to music as you're getting ready for class or work, and just to try to get yourself in that same mind space of starting the day. You can also build in little breaks for self-care throughout the day. We're spending so much more time on our computers and on our phones trying to get this work done. So take the time to stretch in between classes or meetings. If you have time to take a short walk around your apartment or house, or even to take a quick walk around the block, that can be a good way to get yourself moving in between these long sitting periods. Even something like listening to music just to help calm you down or de-stress in between the tasks that you're working on or while you're working on things if you're able to. Even something like taking deep breaths as you're sitting there on a call just to calm your nerves. Or I know in my case, I have a dog. So if I have time in between meetings, I might go over and just say hi to my dog and she is an instant pick-me-up. So think about little things like that that you can be doing to break up your day and to re-energize yourself as you go. It's also really helpful if you can utilize some type of calendar or planner. Maybe you prefer to use a physical paper planner. Maybe you prefer to use, let's say, a digital calendar on your phone. You might even want to set alarms on your phone to remind yourself to transition to different tasks throughout the day. I know with me, I would not be able to have any kind of structure or get things done if I wasn't plugging it in on my Google Calendar. So that's just something that I do to stay on task. It can also be helpful to make to-do lists, especially if you're struggling of keeping track of which tasks you have to do or how to prioritize them. Also, it's going to feel really good to cross things off your to-do list. This feeling of accomplishment, no matter how small, can help motivate you to continue throughout your day. Something else I also want to touch on is while you're in meetings or class, especially if you have a lot of video meetings, you may be feeling Zoom fatigued, having that camera on so much. So if you're allowed and if you're able to even shut your camera off for a few minutes, that can go ahead and allow you to listen fully, but not have to be worried about what your facial expressions are, things of that nature. I also like to stress not multitasking while in classes or in meetings. It is helpful too. You want to give yourself that same level of attention that you would to an in-person class or an in-person work meeting. Also, your social media usage is something that you really want to pay attention to. Figure out whether you're looking on your phone with your digital wellness or just kind of keeping track of it on your own. How much time are you spending on social media per day? And when you are on social media, are you actively interacting with people? Are you having back and forth conversations? Are you commenting on their posts? Or are you more so just passively scrolling, looking at people's stories, liking their posts, but really not doing a lot of direct interactions with those people? There's a big difference between actively utilizing social media to converse and feel connected versus that passive scrolling. And that passive scrolling over time can really lead to comparing yourself to others, feeling like you're missing out, may increase feelings of anxiety, depression, or isolation. That might not be your case specifically, but that is something that potentially could happen over time with passive scrolling and social media. So just ask yourself, is your social media usage helping you feel better, or is it contributing to you feeling worse? Also, are you having not enough time in the day to complete your tasks and goals? So if that's the case, if you're finding you're constantly short on time, you might want to set some app timers on your phone. Or I know with my phone, I have a work time, focus time setting that when I press that, my phone's going to block out all the apps that I've selected so that I can go ahead and fully focus and not feel tempted to get on my phone. And if this is something that you're really struggling with, because it's hard to be on your computer for work and school, but then, also set a social media boundary if needed, you can always reach out to somebody, whether it's your career counselor, a therapist, a mentor, a trusted friend or family member. Start talking to people, ask them, how do they prioritize their work? How do they structure their day? How do they set boundaries? And be open in talking about, what's difficult for you and how you can go ahead and work on that. Along those lines, and getting more awareness about our social media usage and just how we set boundaries with work, school, and life, we also want to keep in mind, how do I cope with everything? There's so many things going on in this world, and it can be really hard to manage. So me personally, I believe that first step is self-awareness, getting to know yourself. So ask yourself, what are your own sources of stress and anxiety? And this is something you can be thinking about as I talk here. What are your sources of stress and anxiety? And then once you know those sources, also asking yourself, how can you tell that you are getting stressed or anxious? What type of clues is your body giving you? Physically speaking, do you notice your heart rate starting to increase? Do you find yourself maybe breathing more shallowly and quickly? Are you getting a headache? Do you have a nervous stomach ache? Kind of pay attention to what those physical clues are that you might be becoming stressed or anxious. You also want to think about any emotional or cognitive clues to this as well. So when you're getting stressed or anxious, do you tend to talk to yourself negatively? Do you put yourself down? Do you lose belief in yourself? So those are things to be looking out for as well. And once you get used to noticing these physical and emotional symptoms, you can go ahead and work on figuring out what coping skills are going to help you get back into a healthier headspace and feel better too. Me, for example, when I'm stressed, I notice that I'll start off by maybe clenching my jaw, grinding my teeth. And that for me is my first physical indicator that I'm holding on to this tension. So for me, I really try to focus on releasing that tension, maybe stressing or de-stressing, taking deep breaths, stretching, And that's what's going to help me. So I don't let that stress and tension take over my whole body by dealing with that first symptom that I noticed. And these are just some examples of things that you might want to try out as forms of self-care and coping mechanisms. Now, granted, with a lot of these, it's going to depend on what setting you're in, how much time you have. Maybe ideally, I would like to cope with stress by going for a walk with my dog, but I might not have the time to do that right then. So maybe instead, I'm going to think about taking deep centering breaths, or maybe listening to a 5-minute guided meditation, or even just taking a minute to stretch, whatever I'm able to do in that setting, in that moment. And so taking a look at this graphic, I mean, feel free to screenshot this if you would like to, because this can be a really helpful guide in just figuring out which coping skills of these do you already have and utilize successfully, and what are some ones that you might be interested in trying out. The nice thing here is you can even pick out different skills in different areas and use those to meet the needs of the different stressors that you have. I also think of mindfulness-based strategies when I think about this. And with mindfulness-based strategies, we're really focusing on staying present in the moment, paying attention to our surroundings, not getting too far ahead of ourselves with, anxious thinking or thinking too far down the road. And I'm actually going to be putting a link in the chat here so you can take a look at these mindfulness-based strategies in more detail, step-by-step instructions on how to go through and utilize them. But some of these mindfulness-based strategies I'm thinking of include deep centering breaths, muscle tensing and relaxing to get out some of that physical tension that you might be holding on to. Maybe doing a body scan. This is something that's extremely helpful, especially if you struggle to fall asleep at night. I also think of things like positive psychology. And in that sense, the intentional practice of gratitude and appreciation. At the beginning of the pandemic, for me, it was really hard to adjust. And I found myself thinking about all the things that we were losing instead of the things I had going on around me. And so I started keeping a gratitude journal, writing down 3 to 5 things, specific things every day that I was grateful for. And that can be a way that you can really train your brain to focus on the positives around you instead of hyper-focusing on the negatives. Again, all of these things will be put in the chat for you to take a look at yourself. I just wanted to go ahead and talk through some of them. There's also great apps you can check out. Off the top of my head, I'm thinking of things like Headspace, Calm, Insight Timer, 10% Happier. There's so many out there that you can find, I'm sure, just by looking at the App Store on your phone. 10% Happier specifically, I know has a really helpful coronavirus guide in mindfulness and meditation in relation to the stressors of this past year. But again, we'll be showing you all these in the chat here. Another important thing to consider during this time of how to cope, how to manage stress, is that importance of connecting to meaningful social supports. So your friends, your family, classmates, coworkers, these connections look different than they used to, but it's still important to have those people in your corner and to reach out for them and be there for them as well. You may also choose to reach out to supports like mental health counselors, career counselors, people, in those realms. But really something that I found beneficial, and I'll talk about frequently with my clients, can be that benefit of volunteering. Even if it's just volunteering for an hour once a month or an hour every couple weeks. That feeling of volunteering and giving back to the community helps you to be a part of the greater good outside of yourself. It feels good to give back and can be really rejuvenating for your own mental health and well-being as well. So some sites I'll frequently have clients utilize for that. They'll look for opportunities on Pittsburgh Cares and also on Volunteer Match. And again, this information will be provided in the chat. All right. So keeping all of that in mind, knowing that our mental health can directly impact our daily functioning, our motivation, how we create structure, this is also something that we want to keep in mind in relation to our job search. that it's really important to have that structure and support throughout this process as well. So when I think about structure and organization, some things that might be helpful for you, if you commonly have job searching sites that you frequently utilize, bookmarking those within your computer or your phone to quickly check them, very useful to have. I also think about, maybe using some kind of spreadsheet to keep track of the different applications you put out, what sites those applications are through, the date that you applied, and then even tracking, have you followed up with that application? What date did you follow up? When you're job searching, everything can become kind of jumbled together. It can be kind of hard to keep track of who's calling you in relation to which job. So structuring some of those types of things can be really useful. You're probably also getting a large amount of emails in a day. So creating subfolders in whatever way makes sense to you can be a nice way to keep track of email communications. And like I was saying before, just having some type of daily structure, utilizing a calendar or phone alarms to structure your day, being aware of your digital wellness and social media usage. This can be really important. I also think about social media and wonder, what ways can you be utilizing that to benefit your job search? So LinkedIn is a great place to be if you aren't already. LinkedIn even has networking groups that you can be a part of that are designed specifically. Let's say, I know Pittsburgh Job Seekers is one of the LinkedIn groups. Point Park has plenty of LinkedIn networking groups for students and alumni, certain types of majors. You can also find LinkedIn networking groups related to your fields of interest. So not only can you be connecting with people on an individual level, but you can also be connecting with people in these virtual group settings. So just something to keep in mind there if you're wondering how to job search during this time. Networking can still be done. It might just look a little bit different than those big job fairs you were going to in person prior to this year. Some other supports to keep in mind, career counselors are fantastic for everything from reorganizing your resume to helping you come up with a job searching plan. So please keep them in mind. They'd be happy to help you. You might also want to pair up with an accountability buddy, maybe one of your classmates who's also searching for jobs. And just keep tabs on each other and how you're doing. I want you to also keep in mind throughout this whole process, as far as motivation goes, what drains you and what builds you up. Motivation is a massive part of the job search, especially if your job search is prolonged. So when we think about motivators, I like to think of intrinsic and extrinsic motivators. So when we say intrinsic motivators, are you the type of person that's really motivated by your beliefs and values, setting and achieving your personal goals? Do you really thrive in learning and growing, and that excites you and motivates you? Or are you the type of person that maybe is more externally motivated? So when you get praise and recognition from others, that increases your energy and motivation. Is that drive for you created by getting good grades or getting some kind of raise at work? So these are just things to keep in mind. You might also be a combination of intrinsic and extrinsic motivators in relation to how you best work. But this is just something to keep in mind, because once you know what motivates you, you can work on your own or work with a career counselor to figure out how you can build those motivators into your day-to-day job search. And then the last little part of my presentation here, and I will go ahead and be dropping these in the chat as well, is just talking a little bit about resources and supports. Keeping in mind that it's not just career supports that are going to be helpful to us, but it's also important to know who we can turn to for mental health related needs or even critical needs. And when I say critical needs, I mean having enough food to eat, being able to pay your rent, pay your utilities, get reliable internet, that you can afford, or if you can't afford, ways to get that internet anyway, and many other aspects as well. So these will all be put as links in the chat to you, so you can look at these on your own time and really interact with these resources to figure out what might fit your current needs. In regards to career resources, Point Parks Career Counseling Center is a fantastic place to turn to. At Jewish Family and Community Services, we also have a career counseling department. You may turn to PA Career Link. If you're a person who identifies as having a disability, you might choose to go to Evolve Coaching or to the Office of Vocational Rehabilitation. There's many more resources as well. So if you're interested in finding out more, please reach out to the Point Park Career Counseling Center and we can connect you to a variety more resources there. As far as mental health goes, Point Park's Counseling Center is really great to reach out to. Also, the Student Assistance Program that they recently started, which is a 24-hour phone line, 24/7 phone line that you can reach out to whenever you're in need. My organization, JFCS, also has a counseling center. They also run a program called Upstreet. Now, Upstreet is for teenagers and young adults up to the age of 22. And their website has a chat feature. They also have a texting feature that you can go ahead and text the Upstreet counselors and just talk about what's going on and get an appointment. You can also look into the National Alliance and the National Alliance for Mental Illness. And as well as that, many community clinics around Pittsburgh also have behavioral and mental health supports as well. Now, granted, these are all going to be things just to seek out for prolonged support. If you're noticing that you're in crisis, contacting the Resolve Crisis Network or the Point Park Student Assistance Program. Or 911, if you're thinking of harming yourself or others. In regards to critical needs, I always refer to the PA 211 page, has a wide variety of critical needs resources. The Point Park Food Pantry would also be something that you could look into. And here at JFCS, we are also able to provide food through the Squirrel Hill Food Pantry. And we also have a variety of other resources that we can look into as well for our clients. So this is just here to say, if you're struggling, there are people who are ready and willing to help you and to connect you with the supports that you're looking for. So I know it can be hard to reach out, but it's certainly important, and people will be there for you.
Okay, yeah, let's dive a little bit deeper into mental health and how it could help with job search. So I wanted to bring you in for a quick Q&A segment here, Bethany. Thanks so much for your awesome presentation. It was really jam-packed full of some great tips and strategies. You talked about the importance of maintaining that work-life balance, why it's so important to keep them balanced. If they get out of whack, it really does have some serious repercussions for people. I think you talked a lot about the importance of self-care and mindfulness. So we appreciate all that great information. So as we kind of move on, I have some questions for you, but before we get into the questions, I did want to remind everyone that May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And so it's such an important topic, as you alluded to in your presentation, Bethany. So we just want people to be aware of mental health and why it's important. And for young people or people who don't realize the importance of mental health, maybe you could just kind of touch on the basics here for the first couple questions to help those who may not know the basics. What is mental health and why is it important?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point, and thank you for bringing that up. So when I think of mental health, I really think of that holistically. So our emotional, psychological, and social well-being. And with our mental health, that's going to directly impact how we view the world and how we view the world's interactions with us. So how we think, how we feel, how we act, how we handle stress, how we relate to others, how we make choices. And if we're doing well in regards to our mental health, we're going to connect well with people. It's easier for us to remain resilient in times of hardship. We're going to focus more on daily positive living habits like being physically active, getting enough sleep, developing coping skills that are healthy for us. When our mental health is struggling, that's really going to impact our daily ability to function. We might be falling behind in our schoolwork. Maybe we're not attending class, or when we do attend class, We're getting there really late and we're like just totally checked out, numb to whatever's going on around us. You might be withdrawing from friends, hobbies, things we used to enjoy. And so we're now having this disconnect with the world, instead of having, that more all around positive, healthy interaction.
Yeah, thank you for bringing up some of the red flags that we should all be aware of when it comes to our mental health. And you mentioned some of those things that we just need to be more aware of our feelings, and physically as well as mentally what we're going through, and just being in touch with our mental as well as our physical lives. So yeah, you brought up some important points there. So yeah, I wanted to ask you about some of those things that cause stress in our lives. Like, so how do stressors such as COVID, current events, work responsibilities, job search, how do these things impact a person's mental health? And how can too much stress cause our mental health to suffer?
That's a great question, and a nice comprehensive list there of the many stressors that we've been experiencing, for over a year now. And to break that down a little bit, I kind of go back to just thinking about what our body reacts as when we're in a state of stress. So your heart rate's going to increase, you might be breathing more rapidly, muscles are tensing, short-term memory is going to become more effective because we're basically going into this fight or flight mode. And in short bursts, stress can be a good thing. As a student, I think of the level of stress that comes for studying for a test because you want to do well on it, or preparing for a job interview because you want this job. The real issue with stress becomes when it's deeply impacting your ability to function. When you're becoming so stressed that it's paralyzing, that you can't move forward with things, or especially thinking about the duration of stress, when it becomes this chronic, long-lasting, long-term type of stress. And we're going to call this prolonged stress response chronic stress. And chronic stress really has been the recipe for many people this year. Medical-related worries, our daily lives have changed so much. Just adjusting to school and work in the different settings, job searching has become more difficult for many. So now that stress has become drawn out like this, and it's this prolonged experience instead of this short burst, it can impact our mental health and our physical health. It can cause potentially increased issues with our attention span and our memory recall. We become, I don't know, I think less able to cope with our emotions. We become more easily overwhelmed. We shut down more easily. As far as mental health goes, unchecked stress can affect the heart. It can decrease our immune system, can affect our metabolism. Our minds and our bodies aren't meant to be in the state of stress for such a long period of time. And I think now, especially, is a crucial time for us to be talking about how stress can affect our minds and our bodies.
Yeah, along the same lines, you mentioned some of the stressors and how we can respond to it, how our body physically responds to those stressors. Why is it, this next question I wanted to ask you, why is it important for us to take time for self-care, using coping mechanisms and prioritizing mental health during this time of COVID and working remotely?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's important because of the aspects I just mentioned. We want to do well and want to feel well. And if stress is wreaking havoc on our body, unchecked, it's going to make you feel unwell. This can lead to burnout, chronic exhaustion. So it's really crucial for us to make mental health and self-care and healthy coping skills that work for us a top priority, especially during this time with isolation being a lot more heightened than what it would have been pre-COVID. And I know when I was in school, I was certainly this way. And even times now, I'll find myself saying, well, do I have time right now for self-care? I'm sure many people are just thinking that they're so busy that they don't have time to take a 5-minute break or to go for a walk or to just do some meditation, whatever that coping mechanism is for them. They say, I don't have time to do that. I have so much to get done. And the way that I kind of look at that is I think of this analogy of a runner in the midst of running a marathon. They're tired. They've been running the last 10 miles. Not whole 10 miles, they've been thinking about how thirsty they are. But they don't want to take a break because they might finish a couple of seconds slower if they go to take that detour to go to the water station and grab a cup of water. So they keep running, they keep pushing through, and they end up collapsing and not finishing that race because they were dehydrated and they had denied their bodies what it needed. So instead of slowing down that race, or slowing down and not finishing that race, it wasn't finished at all. And that's kind of how I've tried to think about the importance of self-care and taking breaks and utilizing those coping skills. Because we can be telling ourselves we don't have time for self-care, there's too many things to do. But if you're not taking those breaks, if you don't take the time for your wellness, the effects of chronic stress could make it so much harder to complete what you want to complete than if you had just taken that small break to begin with.
I really like your analogy, Bethany, about the marathon runner who doesn't take the time to hydrate. Your body can really crash and burn if you don't take time to listen to your body speaking to you. And then that's true with your mental health as well. If you don't listen to your body's negative response to overwhelming stress and not really responding to the stress in a healthy way, then we can crash and burn in other ways. So it's so important to listen to our mental and as well as our physical parts. And they're both equally important. So thanks for bringing that up. And then let's pivot to job searching. You mentioned some of this in your presentation, but searching for a job during an economic downturn because of COVID can be really stressful. What challenges or mental health triggers may occur during a job search? And the second part would be, how can we deal with those triggers in a healthy way?
Absolutely. And you're exactly right. It really has become a stressful time for so many. And what we're noticing, is the job search might be taking much longer than what it would traditionally. So when someone's in the beginning of their job search, it feels new and exciting. You're looking for jobs that you're passionate about and that you could really see yourself doing either during school or after school has completed. And as time goes on, you might become more discouraged. Maybe you're applying to many jobs and you're not hearing back, period. Maybe you keep getting interviews, but never that job offer. And that really makes us start to doubt ourselves, doubt our skills and our capabilities, wonder if, are you going to get that job after graduation? I also think of this from a perspective of like the nerves and anxiety. When you're applying and interviewing for jobs, maybe you feel a lot of pressure to write, that perfect cover letter, or, the resume that's going to just knock everyone's socks off. You want to say exactly the right things for an interview. And because of that, you're second guessing what you're saying and doing. Your level of worry, anxiety, and stress is increasing. You're trying to fit yourself into this like perfect model or perfect mold. So to help with those kinds of thoughts and feelings, first and foremost, I really stress my clients and the students to try to keep meaningful social connections. Keep in touch with friends and family. Like I was saying before, maybe joining a virtual networking group on LinkedIn, or even like at JFCS, we have a job search networking group. We have a job search productivity group. And these are people who come together every couple weeks and touch base about how they're doing. In the sense of people getting what you're going through, it just really helps people to feel seen and to also learn from each other's strategies and interactions. I also think of, if you're the type of person who's really struggling with negative thoughts about yourself and your search, you don't have to handle those negative thoughts alone. You can reach out to a mental health therapist. You can reach out to a career counselor. People understand that this is an extremely hard time, and we don't want you to be alone in your thoughts. So if you're really doubting yourself or second guessing everything you do, please reach out. There are people that are happy to be in your corner and might be there already that you aren't even aware of. Something else that I find to be really helpful is just creating a structure for your day. Kind of like we were talking about earlier, and just maybe starting by a certain type of day, giving yourself a lunch break, having a certain cutoff time, whatever works for you. I think sometimes the pressure of a job search makes you feel like it needs to be go mode 24/7. but it doesn't need to be that way. So job searching in and of itself is a full-time job. And when we have students who are job searching, maybe doing an internship, having classes, they're doing all these things. You've got to give yourself those breaks for self-care, rest, and re-energizing. Um, I also think about just setting goals. Set goals that are directly aligned with your own efforts. So if I set a goal that says secure a job interview this week, that's not entirely in my own control. I want to reach that goal, but that's contingent on someone offering an interview to me. So if you're setting goals that are contingent on other people's actions, and that goal is not achieved, it's going to create a drag on our motivation. So when you're setting a goal, set a goal that's directly impacted by your own efforts. So maybe spending 10 hours a week job searching and tracking your progress, and letting, the tracking of your progress and reaching those goals fuel your motivation to keep going. And then the other last point I'll make here is just the re-energizing feeling that you can get by learning a new skill or by volunteering. With a skill area, I think this can be a skill area that maybe you feel unsure about in your abilities to utilize at work. Or, it could be a skill in a totally other area. Just something that's going to increase your confidence. And like I was saying, is a goal that you yourself can control. And if you're not sure what a good skill to revamp or a new skill to learn is, reach out to a career counselor, because we'd love to help you with that. In regards to volunteer work, like I was saying back in my PowerPoint, feels really good to give back. You're going to increase those happy hormones. You can make meaningful social connections. And you'd also be surprised who you can connect to as a result. I've had clients before who go in to volunteer, and they end up making a networking connection that can positively impact their job search too. So these are just some of the things that I'm thinking of that if you're struggling with your job search, maybe trying out one or several of these might help you to refocus and get back on track.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for some of those recommendations. I think they'll be really valuable for our students as they job search and as they overcome some of these barriers and difficulties that they're going to come across while they job search, and stay positive, and power forward to getting their dream job. But there's going to be ups and downs in the job search. So thank you for sharing some of those tips. Next question I want to ask you about has to do with working from home, working remotely. COVID has had such a big impact on how we work. Many jobs are now 100% remote, work from home positions. How has this new work dynamic impacted people's overall mental health? And what are some strategies to help us stay healthy, both mentally and physically, while working from home?
Absolutely. So I'm thinking back to the graphic that I had on the slides earlier. Because this remote environment is so different than what we're used to, it's really important just to think about what you're doing to encourage wellness and the aspects of your life that maybe you're lacking or that are most important to you. Just trying to figure out what's going to help you be less stressed, more relaxed, and more energized. So in regards to remote work, I think for many people, getting a healthy amount of sleep has become more difficult. The mentality of like, well, I'm just working from home so I can stay up as late as I want. I don't have to worry about the commute in the morning. It has led to many people not getting enough sleep, on a daily basis, and that can impact you. So starting off with just getting a healthy amount of sleep. As far as your workday goes, moving throughout the day is so important because we're just sitting on our computers so much. And so whether that's stretching, walking around in between calls, maybe dancing it out to a song in between classes or meetings, just doing something to break up that monotony of sitting throughout the day. And as far as like emotional well-being goes with remote work, I just think about what do you need to stay connected to yourself and to manage that stress. So maybe you're going to do deep breathing. Maybe you're going to do a gratitude journal. If things are extremely challenging at work, maybe you're going to write down a pros and cons list or a what's going well and what are challenging things to me right now. And then you can sit there and actively problem solve on those lists and see what resources and supports do I have? What are some ways I could go about handling these things that I'm unhappy about? Really taking ownership through some type of action plan. If there are things that are really frustrating you right now with remote work, because it's not what we're used to. And sometimes it might feel like you're on an island, you know? You're communicating with coworkers, but it looks a lot different than someone popping into your office to say hi. So even just socially connecting by going out of your way to text a coworker and say, "Hey, just thinking of you. How's it going?" And just finding ways to keep yourself connected, even though it does look different right now. And not being afraid to ask for help when you need it. I'm very blessed to work on a fantastic team, and I feel like they would have my back with those types of things, and they have when I needed it. So finding people that you can go to when you need help is really important too.
Thank you, Bethany. Yeah, great answer. Great tips and strategies for working from home and how to be successful in this kind of new world where many of us had to make that transition to working from home pretty quickly. So yeah, I think that's really valuable for a lot of our students who are working from home. So thank you. Next question I wanted to ask you has to do with our busy lives and our students who lead very busy lives. Many of our students go to school full time. They work a full-time job while trying to maintain their personal lives, and so they're juggling a lot. What can they do when they feel like their workload is way too heavy and they just feel overwhelmed by it all?
Yes, absolutely. It's a great point to make. The feeling of overwhelmness and juggling too many things. I give students all the credit in the world, everything that they're having to keep track of. I'm really a big fan of writing things down. When I'm feeling overwhelmed, I think it's even more overwhelming to try to remember what you're forgetting because you're overwhelmed. So by writing those things down, even making a list of what you have going on with school, what you have going on with internship or work, what you have going on in your personal life, getting all those things out on paper, just like doing like a full brain dump, just to get out whatever you can. I view that as untangling this mental web. And as you're getting those things written down, you're not going to have to worry about what you're forgetting because it's all right here for you to take a look at. And once you've done that, and whether you choose to do that on a calendar, on a planner, if it's just a bullet point list, whatever works for you really, at that point, then kind of planning out when are things due, um, what do you have to do to get this done, which ones are the top priorities, and work on developing a game plan from there. Um, I've even and had clients do this as well, that they take it to so much detail that they're writing out what resources will they use to get this task done, what supplies do they need, which people do they need to reach out to. So it really becomes this in-depth plan. And once they see the actions that they can take themselves, it helps them to feel less overwhelmed. I think it also helps you to see, once you've written everything out, do you have too much on your plate right now? Are there tasks that can somehow be delegated elsewhere? Are there support systems that can help you with this? And not being afraid to ask for help. Something that I had to realize as a student was that the people in my life might not get the full extent of what I have going on. Your boss might not be aware of the family emergency that you had occur recently and how it's affecting you. Or they might not know that finals week is coming up. And so being able to ask for help and to say, like, this is what I'm carrying right now, is really important to not get burned out, because the more we keep that to ourselves, the more it's going to weigh you down. And just also the importance of taking breaks, talk it out, venting with somebody, whether that's a friend or a classmate who gets what you're going through, a trusted family member, a therapist, all great people to go to, because we as people, we thrive best when we're connected. And I don't want students to lose that right now during this remote time period.
Yeah, great recommendations. And I think it transitions nicely to my next question about the effects of, especially during the last year, the effects of a lot of us are feeling the effects of anxiety. Some of us are feeling depression. And, you mentioned, seeking help with professionals, whether it be a therapist, counselors. How can a student identify the warning signs that their mental health may be suffering and they might need to get professional help?
I appreciate you bringing this up because it's one thing to say you might be depressed, you might be anxious, but it's another thing to say these are some of the things that you might be feeling as a result, and recognizing those warning signs first. So when I think of warning signs in regard to mental health and the struggles related to that, one of the first things I'll pay attention to is how much are you sleeping compared to your usual amount? Are you sleeping much more than you used to? Are you barely sleeping at all? And really trying to use that as a starting point. Also thinking about your energy level compared to what you normally would have. Do you have too much energy? Do you have little to no energy? What was your baseline before this year or before whatever you're currently struggling with? Losing interest in your usual hobbies, friends, withdrawing and isolating from those type of things is another warning sign. And as far as feelings go, you might just be feeling helpless or hopeless, or like you're really just numb to your feelings, or nothing really matters. Feeling upset, down, confused, struggling with your memory recall, maybe just feeling really on edge, like you could just like break down at any moment. These are all things to consider as emotional signs. Even just thinking about what is your substance use like right now? Are you coping through increased substance use? And on a more serious side, even more serious side, are you currently thinking about harming yourself or harming others? And if so, reaching out to somebody immediately with that. With mental health in general, the way that I really look at it is look at your daily tasks that you typically would be performing. If you're not able to perform those daily tasks like you used to, if the pervasiveness of your symptoms is affecting your ability to attend work, attend class, complete assignments, if you're even struggling to do daily hygiene tasks like brushing your teeth, showering, these are all signs that you might want to reach out to somebody for help.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, it's such an important thing to mention that, when a student does feel overwhelmed, when a person feels overwhelmed, there are services they can turn to. If turning to friends and family isn't enough, there's professionals that can give them the help they need to get that mental health support. We talked a little bit about just feeling overwhelmed by everything going on right now. You talked about some of the places they can go to. Anything else that you could talk about, like where you recommend a person turn to for help when they need extra support?
So when it comes to seeking out support, I think first and foremost, that most important aspect is having the courage to take that step. So whatever that looks like to that person. Um, I know some people might be most comfortable reaching out to a trusted friend or family member and disclosing that. And if you are going to a friend or family member, I would want it to be someone who's not going to dismiss how you're feeling. That you want to go to someone who's going to truly listen and validate those experiences you're feeling. Some people might be more comfortable going to a professional, somebody who doesn't really know them that well. So in that case, I think to the resources we've talked about, such as Point Park's Counseling Center, Point Park's Student Assistance Program, that 24/7 phone line I had mentioned earlier. If you're thinking about harming yourself or others, calling Resolve, or another crisis resource. That Upstreet program that I talked about earlier would be a great one to reach out to. You can also look into other counseling supports in the Pittsburgh area outside of Point Park. So JFCS, for example, we have our own counseling department. There's also lots of local health clinics that have behavioral and mental health. And if you really have no idea of where to go, outside of these resources or the resources that I'm going to include in the chat here, I think of in your next career counseling appointment, if you have one, just saying to your career counselor, hey, I'm struggling with this and I don't know what to do. Because we will be able to at least get you started with some resources to help. So the real important factor is just disclosing whenever you are able to.
Yeah, I appreciate you mentioning all those resources and a lot of the free services that are available in the community, as well as the services that students have access to at Point Park. I appreciate you bringing that up, and those resources are there for students to use when they need to. So I kind of want to wrap up this segment, our conversation. As we kind of approach the end of our Q&A segment, what is one thing you would like our students to remember about what you discussed in our webinar today?
So I know I've put a lot out here. This has been a very content heavy session. So with that in mind, I understand, if after hearing all of this, maybe you're feeling really heard and you want to reach out. Maybe you're feeling really overwhelmed by all this information. So with that in mind, I just want to encourage you all, if you have any questions, please ask. If this information makes you want to reach out to somebody, please reach out. If you don't know who to reach out to, start off with the Point Park Career Center and we can connect you to resources. It's been an incredibly hard year and things are still difficult. And I just want you to know that you don't have to do this alone. There are people here, they care about you, they want you to do well and be well. And mental health and wellness are important for us to talk about every day. But especially bringing it up right now during Mental Health Awareness Month, it is a great time to get this topic out here. And I just really appreciate your time. So thank you to the Point Park Career Center for hosting this today and giving me this platform to speak about something so important. I really appreciate it.
Well, we thank you, Bethany. It's been great speaking with you. And I do have one unscripted question, and I'll answer it first to give you a moment to consider your answer. But what are some fun activities that maybe you would recommend that helps you to kind of maintain your mental health? And I'll go first. Over the last year, I mean, people have had a little bit more time to maybe take up a new hobby. Maybe they started baking more. One of the things my family did, we went out and got 4 chicks. They're now chickens. We have a chicken coop and a chicken run in the backyard. And so that was the new hobby I picked up and my family picked up. And it's been a lot of fun having chickens. I'm not 100% sure that they're legal chickens in our neighborhood, so they might be refugees at this point, but hopefully no one will turn us in. But those chickens are awesome. We also have a dog that we walk every day, and that's a lot of fun as well. And I know you're a dog person as well. So any recommendations for having fun and, maintaining your mental health in the process?
Yeah, well, first of all, congratulations on the addition to your family. That's very exciting. My parents went along the same route and adopted 4 ducklings recently. So they've gone along the same lines as you. I think for me, there's 2 things I've been doing. One is almost like a replacement habit. I used to be a really big concert goer, loved going to concerts. Music's really important to me. And unfortunately, that really can't happen right now. So throughout the pandemic, I've been looking up, live recordings from concerts, maybe of bands that I'd always wanted to go see and hadn't seen, and watching those recordings of the concerts and kind of like getting in the moment as if I was in the concert myself. And from a new perspective, a new habit, my dog has probably gotten more walks and hikes in the past year than she has in her 5 years of life. So we every Sunday try to go find a new trail to hike on. And I think just getting out, appreciating nature, and really seeing how excited the new sights and smells make my dog is also an added bonus. So that's kind of been my little family unit's way of getting out and doing something new.
Awesome. Well, thanks again. I really want to thank you for, taking the time to speak with us and present some really great information for our students. It was a great conversation, and we really appreciate all that you do to support your community, as well as our students at Point Park, with all the mental health and career readiness services that you provide. So thanks again, Bethany. We really had a fun time today.
I had a great time talking with you as well. Thanks again for creating this space for this conversation, and I appreciate all that you and Point Park do as well.
We hope you found this discussion helpful as you continue your journey on your career pathway. I'd like to remind you that Point Park University provides a variety of support services to students in need. After hours, support is available 24/7 by contacting the newly implemented Student Assistance Program at 1-800-647-3327. At the University Counseling Center, meet with a counselor for therapy, consultation, or help with connecting to mental health treatment in the community. The Student Health Center is where you can meet with a nurse who can schedule you with a physician and address basic health needs. Pioneer Pantry provides free non-perishable goods for those dealing with food insecurity. At Spiritual Life, an interfaith pastor is available to talk to students interested in exploring their spiritual lives or seeking spiritual support. At the Center for Student Success, you can access tutoring, academic support, or disability support and accommodations with a student success coordinator. At the Professional Career Readiness Center, students and alumni can get help choosing a major, deciding on a career, exploring internships and co-op opportunities. They can also gain skills in applying and interviewing for a job. Safe Zone is a network of trained staff and faculty who are committed to supporting LGBTQ students, and the Department of Public Safety, where police officers, security guards, and student affair professionals are available 24/7 if you need help or have any urgent and immediate concerns. Some of the community services that are available, which Bethany brought up in the presentation, she mentioned Resolve Crisis Services for 24/7 care. Upstreet, she mentioned. Also, another great resource is bigburg.com. That's BIGBURGH.com, which provides, according to the website, good free stuff when things are tough. And just to wrap things up here, don't forget the Professional Career Readiness Center provides career development programs and services as early as freshman year and long after graduation. So please connect with us on social media so that you can stay up to date on all of our programs, giveaways, and events. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Also, all career readiness appointments are scheduled through Handshake. So please connect with your career counselor today to schedule an appointment. Thank you again for attending this month's Candid Career Conversations, and we hope to see you at the next webinar. Until then, take care, be safe, and stay healthy.